Hey, what is up, Dudediligence? So sorry for this late video. A lot of you already asked for a oil video, a PBT video, and this video is going to be a consolidation of all those question marks or all these questions that people have been asking about oil, what I think about oil futures. Because why? Big bomb just dropped in Ukraine and Russia, as I talked about in Patreon chat. I always talk about stuff like, if, Vladimir, my boy Vladimir decided to invade, Ukraine like full on, or trying to do like a little, a sort of like a, hit and run sort of tactic, coming in and out and making people guessing. It's going to make the oil market and the general world economic market really, really volatile. And we sort of have it come true with how NASDAQ performed in the past few weeks, or just past week. But majority of how NASDAQ performing has nothing to do with Russia. But the volatile movement, especially when you see how oil is spiking up on this day, and is when the Russian-Ukraine tension is super, super high, where every major headline is talking about this, and it sort of eased down a little bit after Biden's speech and all this kind of stuff, because politicians have their way. But by the end of Friday's market end, you can already sort of have a feeling where the market still thinks that oil price is still on a rising train. And then everybody is just, on this thought of what if, Russia actually did something unimaginable, which they actually did today. I don't really want to go too much into war or politics in this case, but it's actually pretty bad in the Russian-Ukrainian situation right now. So then for those of you who, technically listen to my sarcastic comments on Patreon, we actually, double loaded, oil on Friday. Shell, USO, even natural gas gonna see a huge volatility toward the upside if on Monday morning, or there's no new Russian-Ukrainian tension news coming out that sort of ease the political tension there, then you will see a huge volatile movement on natural gas, because Russia is actually a bigger natural gas exporter than an oil exporter. Okay, and for those of you who want a general education on how oil price were priced, and then why I say, for those of you who knows Bronco24, his analysis on what oil should be at and what PBT should be at. For those of you who don't know what PBT is, it is a stock that a lot of our Patreon members and a lot of our Discord members are in, and then they're probably average base price around $11. So right now it's $1 up, and then our Patreon internal exit point is about $15.30. And a lot of people are getting really worried, especially in the main chat, are saying that, oh my god, it's gonna just like drop of nowhere because capital expenditure is increasing. Therefore, the implied dividend, or in this case, cash distribution is gonna change and decrease. This is why things are gonna. So basically, for the PBT logic, a lot of people have this logic of higher disclosed expenditure capex equals to less cash distribution, and thus what's gonna happen is draw down on the price. But what you guys don't really see here is the general oil movement on the day of Friday actually went down and then went back up again. So if you go like an oil future, which I actually don't have the app that shows that, I don't think Webull you can allow you to trade futures. The oil future actually went like this. It's super volatile to the end, and it automatically shoots up by the end of Friday. And then this time frame actually does not translate into the time frame of how PBT are traded. Most oil stocks traded on the same beta, which means all of these oil stocks, right, like Shell, USO, and HAL, SLB, Chevron, Exxon, they're all traded based on where USO are going, and where USO going is really based on how Brent index is going, basically the crude oil index, and how the general international oil are traded at on that particular day or on particular time frame. But there is a timeline. There's a time lag in between when the oil futures are traded on basis like one or two basis points is a lot for trading futures. And one tick change in oil futures have a delayed effect on a USO, and one tick change in USO have a delayed effect on stuff like PBT, stuff on HOL, stuff on SLB. And then what is special about PBT is a trust, and for a royal trust or loyal trust here of a oil trust, their beta means their correlation towards the bigger oil index or the bigger oil fund is much more delayed than anything else. So basically they have earlier advantage when oil isn't increasing that dramatically. Then buying into this will be it's a fantastic idea, right? But when oil is sort of on a rising train, then a sudden volatile movement in the oil towards the downside will create a bigger volatile movement on stock like PBT on the downward side. But the same argument holds when, let's just say, Monday, right? Let's just Monday, there's no good news coming out of Russia and Ukraine. We see a bigger green day on the oil side, then PBT would probably end up closing at a higher amount. Does that make sense? Basically, PBT is like the penny stock of oil stocks. It's like the small cap of oil stocks. And then whenever there's a volatile movement in the oil market, it doesn't matter like what really happens internally in the trust. Every investor is going to trim down their high risk oil asset, and then on their portfolio or on their hierarchy, PBT will lie on the more riskier side than stuff like Shell or stuff like USO or stuff like HAL or stuff like SOB, if that makes sense. So there's no need to really panic about this, because if you believe that inflation is not stopping anywhere soon, or more likely it's not stopping anywhere near mid of March, then it's a good idea to just hold PBT for a longer period of time, like by the end of March or whatever, whenever interest rate hike. Because when interest rate hike, there's going to be a sudden effect on how oil stocks perform, because oil stock is like a hybrid of how energy are priced and plus how the general equity market are performing. But we're going to talk about this later on this month when I have a little bit of time, because I just finished traveling this weekend. Turns out that my boss actually already ordered booked the hotel, booked everything for me. And then this is why I decided to actually go. So I left Friday and I just came back. I'm really grateful that they gave me so much like good stuff, right? But at the same time, staying home is much better. Working at home is much better than flying around. And even though I had to make a lot of decisions and they give me a lot of autonomy, but it's better for me to just stay home and do Zoom and so I can communicate with you guys more and do more of the stock content. And there are more and more people want me to invest their money, and I have to think more ways of sort of mitigating this person's risk and mitigating that person's risk, because everybody's risk tolerance level is different. So it's giving me a lot of headaches and giving me a lot of stress over the past few weeks. But anyways, so in general, you don't really need to worry about PBT when you think the general oil price per barrel price is going to increase steadily. All you have to do is just, you have to give yourself a price exiting point. If you think at $100 per barrel on oil, you're going to exit. Then we have to translate what does $100 oil mean for PBT. Then at that point, you exit PBT no matter what. Does that make sense? It's not about when or what is a good stock to buy. One of the most common misconceptions of people trading stocks is they think picking a stock is important. I mean, sure, it is important. Picking a stock is the only time that you have any autonomy or agency in terms of whether you're into this trade or not. Once you buy into this trade, it's actually not up to you whether the stock is going up or down. It's you looking at God or looking at whatever higher being you believe, or Yahweh, or for my Jewish self, I believe that it's some money god or some higher being up there that controls it. What you can control after buying that is the exit point. For those of you who are worried about it because you're already holding on to it, then what you're supposed to do is not worry about it and panicking about it, is to form a rational understanding, a rational decision on what is your cut loss point is, stop loss point is, or cut loss point is, and what is your basic exiting strategy or basic exiting point. In this case, right, for a stop loss line, you can probably just pick the 90-day moving average line, or you can pick 5% less than your buying price. I'm not really sure because, depending on everybody's risk tolerance, it's very different. And then what we can do is we can translate $100 per barrel on crude oil is equivalent to how much of PBT. Let's just say I haven't done the calculation. Actually, I've done half of the calculation. You guys should form the form the opinion yourself and do the calculation for yourself for a little bit, and then I will show you guys my calculation and then as a reference, okay? Because I'm not a financial advisor, we're not financial advisor, we do not get financial advice. It's all we say on this channel is for shits and giggles, right? So we can only give you guys a reference line of what do we think $100 oil is the equivalent to how much of PBT in this case. Okay, this is it for this video. Generally speaking, if you believe oils keep going and inflation is not really going anywhere until the second rate hike, then hey, holding on to it would be what we are doing. Okay, unless there's some very pressing information coming out of Russia or coming out of the Fed side, then we might pivot and decide what we're gonna do with all the shares that we have on PBT or all of the options we hold on USO. But before then, our general assertion of how the market is going to go and how oil is going to go doesn't change. It haven't changed for the past six months, actually, right? There's nothing to be worried about, really. All right, see you guys on the upside. And if you like this kind of video, smash the like button and subscribe. See you guys on the upside.